Welcome to Blind Abilities. This is Pete Lane. We'd like to introduce you to our guest, Joe Fishwick. Joe is visually impaired, an assistive technology instructor, a wife, and a mother. Joe is also the chairperson of VI Talk, an ongoing charitable organization whose goal is to equip blind and visually impaired folks in the UK to not only manage their blindness, but to thrive.
Welcome to VI Talk, sharing ideas, information and support.
We started as a Facebook group, just a voluntary group, in January 2014. Then we got an audio boom channel in March 2014. We've started doing link days, which basically is an opportunity for blind and partially sighted people or anybody who works in that field to get together. I had to transition from using print to Braille, and I was so glad I was prepared for that. Although it was still difficult, it was great. So I run a Braille support group on Facebook for anybody who's learning Braille or just wants a bit of extra help. Drop me a message on Facebook and I'll approve your request to join. And the same with the VI Talk groups. We've got 7 of those now. Gluttons for punishment, us.
Joe is also a good friend of our own Jeff Thompson, who had a chance to catch up with Joe while he was visiting the UK.
Indian summer?
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Glad I'm here right now.
Yeah, you couldn't have picked better.
We're at the Clifton Hotel, which is in Teignmouth.
6 or 7 acres now, yeah. It was owned by guide dogs back in the day. Well, owned by guide dogs, but run by the RNIB.
Sharing her story.
It is lovely. I feel very lucky to live here. Been here for 6.5 years now.
And her advice.
You've got to be patient with yourself. Don't expect everything to happen in a day, and it is a grieving process. Losing your sight it's a form of grief because you're losing something that's very precious to you.
And now, let's join Jeff Thompson and our guest, Joe Fishwick.
Welcome to Blind Abilities. I'm Jeff Thompson. Now I'm in Teignmouth, England, and I'm sitting here with Joe Fishwick, and she is what title would you call that for VI Talk?
Chair of VI Talk, because it's a charity, a charitable incorporated organisation, which is just a different form of charity.
And you got a big event coming up here this month.
We do. We've started doing link days, which basically is an opportunity for blind and partially sighted people or anybody who works in that field to get together during a day at an event, and we're going to have speakers. So we've got one at Bradbury Fields, which is a local blind society up in the northwest of England in Liverpool. And so we've got 4 speakers coming along. So we've got somebody talking about employment, and they're going to be offering opportunities for people in that area to get some employment, hopefully. We've got somebody talking about sports and activities, hopefully motivate people to get involved with that kind of thing. And we've got some technology, and we've got Bradbury Fields themselves talking about their services.
A big day.
Yeah, it's good. And then we've got another one in London in November. Similar kind of theme, just a chance for people to get together, but with some social time as well, because the feedback we get is that people want to learn from each other. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? When somebody's done something and they pass that on, someone thinks, oh, well, if they can do it, maybe I could have a go.
Oh, yeah. Experience is the best teacher.
Absolutely.
And you started this back in the audio boom days.
I did, yeah. We started as a Facebook group, just a voluntary group, in January 2014. Then we got an audio boom channel, well, audio boo as it was then, in March 2014. And it was actually you who kind of gave me the heads up on how to proceed with that. So thank you very much for that. And then 2 years down the line, more or less, February 17th, 2016, we were granted charity status. And yeah, the rest is history.
Welcome to VI Talk, sharing ideas, information and support.
Hi everyone, it's Jo, and I have with me Dawn.
Hi.
And it's a pleasure to introduce, the first time on VI Talk, Ben, who I met at Sight Village, and he has a really interesting project to talk about. Hi, Ben.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Now, Joe, a long time ago, we talked about Braille, and you gave this great talk about Braille. Braille is very important to you.
It is, yeah, very important. I learnt Braille when I was 12, and thank God for that, because I kind of knew I was probably going to lose my sight, but nobody knew exactly when. And they insisted I learnt Braille at 12, and I got a detached retina at 14, smack bang in the middle of my O-levels and CSEs, for those who remember those days, in Britain. So I had to transition from using print to Braille, and I was so glad I was prepared for that. Although it was still difficult, it was great. So I run a Braille support group on Facebook for anybody who's learning Braille or just wants a bit of extra help. Maybe they're changing from what we call standard English Braille to UEB, which means that everybody's kind of together in Braille, I guess. But I love it. I love having notes in front of me. You know, if I'm doing meetings, committee meetings for VI Talk, I just like to have notes in front of me, and Braille just allows me to do that.
And how can they find that Facebook page?
If you search Braille Support Group, you'll find it. There's a couple of questions to ask you why you want to join and, you know, if you're visually impaired or work in the field of visual impairment, and just answer those questions or drop me a message on Facebook and I'll approve your request to join. And the same with the VI Talk groups. We've got 7 of those now. Gluttons for punishment, us. So we've got our main group, we've got the resources group, we've got sport, travel, book club. Just recently we've opened a music one, and also arts and crafts, so people can share their idea what they do for hobbies and things in the arts and crafts field, and hopefully encourage other people to have a go. So there's people already posted about knitting, crocheting, sewing, all sorts of things.
You guys got it all locked up.
Well, it's, just if somebody comes to us and says, what about this? We'll think about it and then go, yeah, we did get asked to open a dating group, but we kind of said no, it's a bit too complicated, the whole dating scene. Yeah, we thought the whole kind of safeguarding thing, and, you know.
But they can find people by other interests, like knitting. Hey, go for it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. If you're into sport, you know, get on the sport group or the travel group. With travel, it doesn't have to be that you've gone on some accessible travel or anything. It could be that you've gone mainstream, but you've found it particularly useful and helpful, and that, you know, maybe staff at a hotel or something or in a resort have been great. Come and tell everybody about it.
And you have a guide dog sitting next to you.
I do. I have Bruno. He's a golden retriever. He's a bit hot. It's very hot here today. So, yeah, he's a bit warm.
Indian summer?
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Glad I'm here right now.
Yeah, you couldn't have picked better.
And we're at the Clifton Hotel, which is in Teignmouth, and we're sitting down on the grounds. And some people are coming by, but we found a bench way down here. What is there, 6 acres, 7 acres?
6 or 7 acres now, yeah. It was owned by guide dogs back in the day. Well, owned by guide dogs, but run by the RNIB. And now it's been bought by Starboard, who are a company that own some Holiday Inns, some Ibis hotels, and some Great Western, I think it is. And they bought Windermere Manor, which is up in the Lake District in the northwest of England, and the Clifton, which is down here in lovely sunny Devon.
And this is my 3rd time being here, and it's still a great place.
Yeah, it's lovely. It is lovely. I feel very lucky to live here. Been here for 6.5 years now.
And what is unique about the Clifton Hotel if you are visually impaired?
So the Clifton is, even though it's mainstream now, all the staff are trained in visual awareness. So if you come as a blind or partially sighted person and you maybe need guiding around the hotel, you need to be shown the route to your room. They'll show you around the hotel. What they can't do is personal care. Obviously, that's a bit too much because they don't have the staff here to do that. But they have Braille menus. There's Braille on all the doors and large print as well. Large print menus. There are guide dog runs here, so your guide dog is catered for. They can also order in dog food for you. So if you ring them in advance and say, you know, rather than travelling on the train with a big bag of dog food, you can order it in from the hotel. They can also supply dog beds, dog bowls, and there's a grooming room here as well, and there's even a dog shower. So if your dog's been on the beach, you can take your dog into the dog shower and give it a little wash down.
Oh, that's sweet. And we're not that far from the beach at all.
We're not. You can walk through the grounds, and there's a gate at the bottom of the gardens, and there's a code for that. You put in the code, and you're probably about no more than 100, 150 metres, I'd say. Walk down this pretty safe path, really, and then you're onto the seafront. And there's an outdoor cafe there, so you can grab yourself a sandwich or a breakfast or something, or just sit and have a coffee and listen to the sea.
And that's about 5 minutes walk.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, no more than that, really.
And Teignmouth is right on the English Channel.
Yeah, it's near to Torquay and Exeter. We've just been to Plymouth today, haven't we? So that was nice. So yeah, there's lots to do here. There's a zoo and there's other places of interest. There's a museum in Teignmouth, just a small museum. That's quite interesting. Lots of pubs and places to eat. I mean, last night, for example, there were 10 of us went out for a meal, weren't there, in one of the local pubs.
We even had some great musicians come in there.
We did. They were fab, weren't they? You did a recording, didn't you?
Oh yeah, they were playing American folk music.
Yeah, and Laurie got up and had a sing, didn't she?
Crazy boy.
Patsy Cline. Yeah, it was really good.
That's my wife from Minnesota.
Thank you. That was the best one of the evening, sweetheart, so far. Better than this lot down here, I'll tell you.
So, Joe, what was it like for you growing up and going through high school as you transitioned into your career and stuff?
So I was born with a sight problem, so they always knew that I'd lose my sight, although it wasn't kind of explained to me as a young child because I guess that would be too scary, I suppose. So I lost the sight in my right eye when I was probably about 6 or 7, although I don't really remember that now. When I got to 11, it was decided that my eyesight was deteriorating badly. So I was at a school for partially sighted children, so I had to go to one that could teach me Braille, teach me how to use a long cane. So I went to boarding school in Liverpool, in the northwest of England, as I said before. Then I went to a residential college in Hereford in England and went there for 3 years. Did lots of business studies, audio typewriting, that kind of thing. And then I really struggled to find work afterwards. So I kind of just kept going back to college, relearning, getting new skills. So I qualified as a complementary therapist, qualified as a computer programmer, so jack of all trades, master of none. And that's where I met my husband in 1995 on a computer programming course. I just couldn't find work, just couldn't get a foot in the door really. So started VI Talk because I wanted to help people, but also I guess something to do really. And then in 2016 there was a job going at the Clifton Hotel for an assistive technology coordinator as part of the RNIB's Online Today project. It was a lottery funded project to help visually impaired people get online, so learn how to use mobile technology and get started with that or advance further with it. And the then manager at the hotel said to me, you should give that a go. And I was like, no, I'll never get it. I just won't get it, She said, all joking apart, but you could do it with your eyes shut. And so I went for it and got the job. And I was like, wow, I was in my 40s and got my first paid job, and still doing that now. I'm contracted till the end of January next year, but I'm going out and about in different areas of Devon now and Somerset and Cornwall, so all southwest of England, and teaching other people how to do what I've been doing, so how to teach visually impaired people how to use technology and supporting local blind societies when they do events for blind and partially sighted people, so helping with iPhones, Android, Alexa, all that kind of good stuff.
And you probably bring the VI Talk business card.
Well, sometimes. In the process of brailing some of those at the moment, so you see Braille comes in again. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Could you tell our listeners what's it like, because you're a mom, mm-hmm. What was it like raising a child as a visually impaired person?
Oh wow, gosh, my daughter's 16 now, so she's gone off to college. It was interesting. My husband, Rob, was at home. He wasn't working at the time, so I guess I had help there, so we kind of worked as a team because we lived, what for me was a struggle, we lived in quite a rural village in the northwest of England and the transport links were pretty rubbish, so to get our daughter to nursery or to get her to school was now impossible for me to do, so Rob had to be around really. I'd lost my mum before Jodie was born, and so that was really a struggle for me because I obviously wanted her around for all her advice, so we were kind of a lot on our own, so it was just learning just as you go. I didn't have many VI friends back then really. I kind of left, not deliberately left I guess, but just dropped out of the blind community quite a lot. But I just think you just get on with it. I think you've got to get stuck in, you just can't be afraid of it. You get all those silly questions, you'd be out and someone would find out that you've got a child and they'd be like, oh, how do you feed a baby when you're blind? And you'd be like, well, you try giving a baby Weetabix, with your eyes shut. But I think you just have to be prepared. You have to be well equipped. You have extra cloths and, water around to clean up mess, and you just have to really just be determined, I think, and just find workarounds. But you do, and I think don't let anybody tell you that you can't be a mum or a dad, a dad as well. I've spoken to VI dads, and you get, on the school playground when you used to do pick-up, some of the parents don't want to interact with you because they just don't know how, but it's the same old thing, isn't it? We all experience that at some time in our lives, whether we've got children or not, which can make it a bit tricky because your child gets all the questions, oh, your mum's blind, is she? And what do you do? What can she do? How can she do things for you? But I think your kids grow up really quickly and they learn. Jodie's been able to guide since she was able to walk, really. It used to be a hand on her shoulder, so when we'd go off and do things together. But moving down here to Teignmouth has been the making of all of us, I think. She's made so many good friends, and she's sighted. But down here, and I think partly because of the hotel, everybody just takes it in their stride, because they've all seen guide dogs and long cane users before, and it's like, oh, it's just another guide dog owner, it's just another long cane user, and everyone's just really quite nice about it. And, you know, there's not as much discrimination, I don't think, in this area, luckily.
They get it.
They do get it, yeah, they really do. You know, you go into a shop or a bar or whatever, and, you know, they're happy to help and they're happy to carry drinks and food. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen in other places, but I think they're just so used to it here, they just take it in their stride.
Yeah, like in Minneapolis, we have 2 schools about a mile apart, so there's always 20 or 30 students milling about and interacting with society and stuff, so they get acclimated to it.
Yeah.
That really helps.
Yeah, I think it does. They just, you know, happy to go out of their way to just treat you like anybody else, really, but just to give you that little helping hand if you need it.
So, Joe, what advice would you have for someone who is, you know, in the shoes you were in when you were younger, or someone who is starting to have challenges with vision or reading the printed word and stuff? What would you say to them?
I'd say give yourself time. It's little steps, and I think you've got to be patient with yourself. Don't expect everything to happen in a day, and it is a grieving process. Losing your sight it's a form of grief, because you're losing something that's very precious to you. So I think you've got to give yourself time. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, to tell them how you're feeling, and to seek that help and support. There is support out there. Sometimes it takes a while to get that support, but, you know, tell your family, tell your friends. You may lose some friends along the way. People do, because they just don't know how to behave around you, but you'll also make some other friends along the way, and some probably good friends and lifelong friends. Persevere, but have patience with yourself. Just carry on. Don't give up. You'll feel like it sometimes. I had moments when I lost my sight when I can remember being 14 and lying on my mum and dad's bed and telling them that I was not going back to school. I was not doing my O-levels. I was jacking it. That was it. Life was over. Rubbish. And my mum and dad were brilliant, and they just encouraged me. And, you know, when I went back and I took my exams and carried on, and, you know, it is possible. Things are possible. Don't let people tell you. I mean, obviously, you know, there are things you're not going to be. You're not going to be an airline pilot. And you might have to even, you know, if you lose your sight later in life, you might have to change career. And that's a challenge, and it is difficult. You may not find work, but there's voluntary work, and there's a lot of things you can do to help other people as well. There's a lot of organisations, charities out there that you can get involved with. But I think just give yourself time, and just don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help and tell people what's happening, and you'll get there. You will get there.
Yeah. So, Joe, here's a technical question. Since you're in the technology, iPhone or Android?
iPhone. For me, iPhone. But I always, that's a really tough one. I find Android quite tricky. I'm an Apple girl. However, when I go out and do, say, living with sight loss courses that we have over here, I always take Android, Apple, and I also take a synaptic phone as well, which is something that I don't know if you have in the US, but we have it here. If you've got limited vision, it kind of pares everything down into one nice neat menu, and it's got really good contrast on it. If you want a phone or a tablet just to do, you don't want it all singing or dancing, but you want to do things on it, synaptic is quite good. So I do try and keep an open mind, but for me, it's iPhone all the way, I'm afraid.
So do you get a keyboard with it, like a Bluetooth keyboard?
Yeah, I do. I have 2 Bluetooth keyboards. I have a full-size one, and then I have a folding one, which is it's a tri-fold, so it's almost full-size when you unfold it. It's got an aluminium back, so it's quite sturdy if it gets a bit of a knock in your rucksack or your bag. But yeah, I generally have a Bluetooth keyboard with me, because I'm a touch typist as well, so I can just, you know, chatter away on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say touch typing, will you explain that to them?
Yeah, so touch typing is when you don't look at the keyboard. So I was taught to touch type when I was at primary school, which again is one of the best things that I've ever been taught. You know where all the keys are, so you know what finger does which key on a keyboard, typewriter or a computer keyboard, so you can get up to really high speeds. It's great. If you've got sight and maybe you're losing your sight, and maybe you know that eventually it's going to go, then I would learn to touch type, because I think it's a really, really useful skill.
Well, Joe Fishwick, thank you very much for coming on here, talking about VI Talk, talking about the changes that happened in your life and all the paths that you've traveled to get to where you are today, and you've been successful at doing that. I really like what you're doing with your charity VI Talk and getting other people connected.
Thanks, Jeff.
This concludes Jeff's chat with Joe Fishwick. Thanks so much, Joe, for joining us on Blind Abilities. Also, special thanks to CheeChau for his beautiful music. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day. For more podcasts with the blindness perspective, check us out on the web. at www.blindabilities.com. We're on Twitter.
We're on Facebook.
And be sure to check out our free app
In the Apple App Store.
and the Google Play Store.